Hello, everyone. If you're watching this, chances are you've studied English vocabulary before, but for some reason, the words just don't stick. You memorize a list, feel confident, and then a few days later, poof, it's like those words vanish from your brain. Sound familiar? You're not the only one. This is one of the most common frustrations English learners face. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered how you can remember the name of a random cartoon character from childhood, but still forget a basic English word you just studied last night? Or how a song lyric you haven't heard in years suddenly pops into your head, yet you can't recall the meaning of priority or schedule? It's strange, right? But it's not your fault. Most people are never taught how memory really works. We're told to repeat things, write them down, highlight them, but repetition alone isn't enough. Your brain is not a hard drive. It needs triggers, emotions, associations, something to hold on to. Otherwise, the information just slips away. And when that happens with English words, it feels like all your efforts were wasted. In this video, I'm going to change that for you. I'll show you how to never forget English words again. We're not talking about magic tricks or shortcuts. This is about understanding how your brain is wired and how to use that to your advantage. You'll learn powerful techniques backed by psychology and used by memory champions around the world. Techniques you can start using today, even if you failed at vocabulary in the past. We'll cover why you forget in the first place. Then I'll break down 3 life-changing strategies for remembering words permanently. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just passionate about English, this video is your guide to mastering vocabulary once and for all. Stick with me until the end. These methods will not only help you remember English, they might just make learning fun again. The science behind forgetting. Let's start with something most English learners struggle with, but almost no one explains properly. Why you forget words so easily. You learn them today, repeat them a few times, feel confident, and then 2 days later, they've completely vanished from your mind. Why does that happen? The answer lies in something called the forgetting curve. This concept comes from a famous German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus. Over 100 years ago, he conducted experiments to measure how quickly people forget new information. What he discovered still holds true today. According to his research, the average person forgets 50% of what they learn within 1 hour. After 24 hours, that number jumps to 70%. And by the end of a week, almost 90% of that information is gone, unless you do something specific to make it stick. So let's be real. If you're forgetting words, it's not because you're lazy or not smart enough. It's because your brain is designed to forget things that seem unimportant. And unfortunately, when we memorize vocabulary with no context, no emotion, and no relevance, the brain decides it's not worth keeping. Let's break this down even further. Your memory has 2 main systems, short-term memory and long-term memory. Think of short-term memory like a whiteboard. It's fast but temporary. You can remember a phone number for 20 seconds, but unless you repeat it or connect it to something meaningful, it gets erased. Long-term memory, on the other hand, is more like a filing cabinet. It stores information more permanently, but only if your brain thinks it's important. So what makes something feel important to the brain? Here are 4 key ingredients: emotion, association, repetition, and relevance. If you memorize exhausted, very tired with no real-life link, your brain might toss it away. But if I say, I worked 12 hours straight and got home completely exhausted, I could barely move, now there's a vivid image and emotional connection. That's how your brain learns best, through experience, not through lifeless lists. Another huge mistake learners make is passive repetition. You look at the word over and over, maybe say it out loud a few times, then move on. But that's not how memory works. Active recall is what creates real retention. That means forcing your brain to remember without seeing the answer in front of you. For example, look at the English word, hide the definition, and then try to explain it in your own words. That process of retrieval builds mental strength. Let's take it a step further with something called the generation effect. Studies show that if you generate the word yourself, by guessing it, writing it in a sentence, or explaining it to someone else, you remember it far better than if you just reread it. Your brain loves solving problems. So instead of just reviewing flashcards, make your own examples, act out the meaning, or teach it to a friend. Another major piece of the puzzle is context. Words learned in isolation are forgettable. Words learned in real situations are memorable. Take the word budget. You could read, budget means how much money you plan to spend. Fine. But now imagine someone says, I'm on a tight budget this month, so no more takeout. I'm surviving on rice and eggs. Suddenly, the word has life. It has meaning. You'll remember that. And here's another overlooked issue: cognitive overload. If you're learning too many words at once, your brain short circuits. You might feel like you're being productive, but you're really just cramming. And cramming leads to forgetting. Think of it like pouring water into a small glass. After a certain point, it overflows. The same happens with your memory. Instead, focus on depth, not breadth. Learn 5 new words today, but really learn them. Connect them to stories, emotions, personal experiences. Visualize them, speak them, use them. Then tomorrow, review them, and only add new words when you're confident the previous ones are secure. Let's not forget the role of emotion in memory. You remember emotionally charged events better than neutral ones. That's why people remember their wedding day, or a scary accident, or a funny joke from years ago. The same principle can apply to vocabulary. If a word makes you laugh, cringe, or relate to something personal, it sticks. Try exaggerating or dramatizing meanings. Make silly associations. Make it yours. Here's a fun example. Take the word awkward. You can just memorize the definition, uncomfortable or embarrassing. But imagine this. You wave at someone who wasn't waving at you, and they just stare. Boom! That's awkward. You've just created a feeling linked to the word. That's powerful learning. Finally, let's talk about your learning environment. Where and how you study matters. If you're learning in a dull, repetitive setting, like just staring at a textbook every night, your brain gets bored. But if you change your routine, mix up your materials, use visuals, audio, apps, and real-life conversations, your brain stays alert and engaged. This variety actually boosts memory retention. So to sum it all up, forgetting is not a flaw. It's a design feature of the brain. But when you understand how it works, you can work with it instead of against it. Focus on deep learning with emotional and contextual links. Use active recall, not passive review. Avoid cramming. Create meaningful associations. And always aim to make new vocabulary feel like your own. Now that you understand the science of forgetting, it's time to fight back. In the next section, I'll teach you one of the most powerful memory tools ever discovered: spaced repetition. It's simple, proven, and it might completely change how you learn English words forever. The power of spaced repetition. Now that you understand why we forget, let me introduce a technique that literally rewires your brain to retain information permanently. It's called spaced repetition, and it's not just a learning hack. It's a scientifically backed system that's helped millions of people master languages, memorize facts, and even become memory champions. So what exactly is spaced repetition? Spaced repetition is a method where you review information at increasing intervals, just before you're about to forget it. Instead of cramming vocabulary over and over in one sitting, you space out your reviews over time, and this timing makes all the difference. Here's how it works. Let's say you learn the word ambitious today. Instead of reviewing it 5 times in 1 hour, you review it once today, then again tomorrow, then in 3 days, then in a week, then in 2 weeks. Each time you review it, your brain says, "Oh, this must be important. I keep seeing it." So it builds stronger memory pathways. You're essentially training your brain to hold on to the word. And the best part? You don't need to guess when to review each word. There are apps that do all the work for you. Let me introduce you to Anki, Quizlet, and Memrise, 3 powerful spaced repetition tools you can use for free. Anki is especially popular among medical students, language learners, and anyone who needs to remember a lot of information. It's based entirely on spaced repetition. Every card you review gets sorted into a queue based on how well you remembered it. If you forget it, Anki shows it again soon. If you remember it easily, Anki waits longer before showing it again. Let's use a real-life example. You want to learn the word hesitate. You add it to your Anki deck, along with the sentence, "She didn't hesitate before jumping into the cold water." Today you study it. Tomorrow it pops up again. You remember it so it goes into the easy pile. The next time it appears is 3 days later. You still remember? Great. Now you won't see it for another week. Eventually, that word becomes so familiar, it's impossible to forget. Now compare that to the traditional method, writing hesitate or pause before doing something in your notebook and reviewing it once a week with no system. Which one do you think your brain prefers? Spaced repetition taps into what we talked about earlier, the forgetting curve. If you review something right before you're about to forget it, that's when memory retention shoots up. Your brain gets the signal. Hey, this is important. Let's save it. You might be thinking, this sounds complicated. Do I have to plan all my reviews manually? Not at all. That's the beauty of using technology. Anki handles all the intervals for you. You just show up, review your flashcards, and let the algorithm do the work. Here's another tip. Don't just add English words by themselves. Add images, audio, and example sentences to your cards. The more sensory input you give your brain, the better. If you add a photo of someone hesitating or a short audio clip of the word being used in context, it becomes far more memorable. But remember, spaced repetition only works if you're consistent. That means making it a daily habit. Even just 10 minutes a day can make a massive difference. Over time, those minutes add up, and suddenly you know hundreds, even thousands, of words effortlessly. Let's talk about another reason why spaced repetition is so powerful. It reduces mental fatigue. Instead of learning 50 new words in one exhausting session, spaced repetition spreads the load. You review a few words each day. Some are new, some are old, some are just about to fade from memory. This variation keeps your brain alert without overwhelming it. And because you're seeing words when you need to, your brain doesn't get bored. You're always working at your ideal challenge level. Never too hard, never too easy. Let me also clear up a common myth. Spaced repetition is not just for vocabulary. You can use it to remember idioms, grammar rules, pronunciation tips, phrasal verbs, and even cultural notes. Anything you want to retain, put it in your deck. Here's a bonus tip. Create decks based on themes, not just random lists. For example, a travel English deck, a job interview phrases deck, or a business vocabulary deck. When your vocabulary is grouped around real-life topics, it feels more meaningful, and your memory loves meaning. Still skeptical? Let's do a mini challenge. Learn 10 new English words today and put them into a spaced repetition app. Use them in your own example sentences. Add an image for each one. Review them once a day for the next week. You'll be amazed at how well you remember them and how quickly they become part of your natural speech. Before we move on, here's one final reminder. Spaced repetition is not magic. It's a tool, and like any tool, it only works if you use it properly. That means consistency, personalization, and a willingness to stay the course. But if you commit, even just a little, you'll start to experience something amazing. Words won't slip away anymore. They'll stay with you. They'll become part of who you are. Coming up next, I'll show you how to supercharge your memory even further using mental images and something called the memory palace technique, a strategy that dates all the way back to ancient Greece. Don't miss it. Memory palaces and visualization. Now that you've seen how powerful spaced repetition can be, let's take your memory to the next level with one of the oldest and most powerful techniques ever invented. It's called the memory palace, and it's going to completely change the way you remember English words. The memory palace is not new. It was used by ancient Greek orators who had to memorize hours of speeches without notes. It's also used by modern-day memory champions who can memorize hundreds of random words or numbers in just minutes. And the best part? It works incredibly well for language learning. Here's how it works. Your brain is hardwired to remember places and images far better than abstract information. That's why you can remember your childhood home in detail, but not the list of groceries you were supposed to buy. A memory palace turns boring vocabulary into unforgettable experiences by linking words to vivid images placed in familiar locations, like your house, your school, or even your favorite video game map. Let's build one together. Imagine your house. You walk through the front door. To your left is the living room. On the right, maybe the kitchen. Upstairs, your bedroom. Perfect. That's your palace. Now, let's say you want to remember 5 English words: collapse, furious, generous, apologize, and embarrassed. Step 1, turn each word into a visual scene. For collapse, imagine a giant Jenga tower crashing down in your living room. The pieces fly everywhere. It's loud, chaotic, unforgettable. For furious, picture your dad in the kitchen screaming because someone ate the last slice of pizza. His face is red. He's shaking the empty box. For generous, visualize your little sister giving away all her Halloween candy to strangers. Her arms are overflowing with chocolate bars. For apologize, imagine your dog knocking over a vase and actually saying, "I'm sorry," in a deep cartoon voice. And for embarrassed, picture yourself walking into school wearing pajamas by accident. Everyone's laughing. Your face turns red like a tomato. Step 2. Place these scenes in specific rooms in your house. The Jenga collapse goes in the living room. The angry pizza dad in the kitchen. Your sister handing out candy in the hallway. The talking dog in the bedroom. And pajama you in the bathroom. Now, when you walk through your house in your mind, these words come alive. You're not just remembering definitions, you're experiencing them. The more emotional, exaggerated, and weird the images, the better. Why? Because your brain is not logical, it's visual, emotional, and associative. If a word makes you feel something or makes you laugh, your brain grabs onto it and won't let go. Here's another trick. Use personal memories to make the scene stronger. If you've ever collapsed after a workout, use that memory. If you've ever felt embarrassed in real life, go back to that moment. Combine the English word with your story. That's where real memory happens. You can even expand your palace. Use your school, your office, a favorite restaurant, or a fictional place like Hogwarts or the Avengers Tower. The key is to choose a location you know well, so you can mentally walk through it without thinking. Let's say you want to learn 100 new words. Sounds scary, right? But if you divide them into 10 rooms, each with 10 vivid images, suddenly it's manageable. And you're not cramming dry data. You're creating a movie in your mind. Now a lot of learners ask, isn't this too much work? And I get it. At first, creating memory palaces takes effort, but over time, it becomes second nature. And the results are worth it. You'll remember words weeks, months, even years later, because they're tied to strong images and locations in your brain. To make it even more effective, combine this with spaced repetition. Create flashcards that include your visual image or a reminder of your memory palace scene. When you review the card, your brain immediately jumps back to the location, the emotion, the story, and the word comes back instantly. Another bonus of this method, you can use it to learn phrases, not just words. Imagine a scene that includes the full sentence. She apologized for being late. Visualize her running into a room, out of breath, and bowing repeatedly. That's far more memorable than just reading the sentence on paper. Let's take it a step further. Say you're learning collocations like make a decision, break a promise, or catch a cold. Turn each one into a story. For make a decision, picture yourself baking a cake with two different frosting flavors and saying, this is the final decision. For break a promise, visualize a contract literally snapping in half like a cracker. For catch a cold, see a cartoon character running after a floating germ with a net yelling, gotcha, the crazier the better. Because crazy sticks. And don't worry if your images don't make sense to others. They only need to make sense to you. In fact, the more personal your visualization, the more power it has. You're creating a private world where English words are alive. Here's a quick recap. Pick a familiar place, house, school, game world. Choose words you want to learn. Turn each word into a vivid, emotional, or funny image. Place the images along your mental path. Review the journey regularly using spaced repetition. If you do this even once a week, you'll notice a massive boost in how much you retain and how easily the words come to you when you speak or write. Emotional anchoring. If you've ever cried during a movie, laughed at a meme for hours, or remembered a smell from your childhood out of nowhere, congratulations. You've experienced emotional anchoring. And now you're going to use that same power to remember English vocabulary for life. Here's the truth. Emotions are glue for memory. When something makes you feel strongly, joy, embarrassment, anger, excitement, it becomes hard to forget. That's why you still remember where you were during a major life moment, but not what you ate for breakfast last Tuesday. So what if we could attach emotion to every English word you learn? That's exactly what emotional anchoring does. It takes cold, boring vocabulary and transforms it into a feeling, so your brain naturally stores it in long-term memory. Let's do an experiment. Take the word regret. You could memorize the definition, to feel sorry about something you did or didn't do. That's fine. But now picture this. You had a chance to speak up in class. You knew the answer, but fear held you back. Later, the teacher said, no one knew the answer to this one. And inside, you felt that sting, that tight feeling in your chest. That is regret. You've just anchored the word to a real emotional experience. This technique is especially useful when learning abstract words, feelings, concepts, even phrasal verbs. Instead of just defining them, link them to a story, your story, someone else's story, or even a fictional one. Emotions give those words a reason to stay in your brain. Let's try another, the word proud. Think back to a time when you accomplished something big. Maybe you passed an exam, helped a friend, or made your parents smile. That warm, confident feeling? That's pride. Now, when you hear or use proud, you're not just thinking of the dictionary, you're reliving that moment. That's an anchor. You can also anchor words using stories with emotional weight. Let's say you want to remember the phrase, let someone down. Instead of memorizing it in isolation, create a short personal story. I promised to help. My friend moved, but I canceled last minute. She had to carry everything alone. She didn't say much, but I knew I'd let her down. Boom! That phrase is now locked in with guilt and empathy. Even if you don't have a real experience, you can invent emotional mini-stories. Think like a screenwriter. The more emotional conflict, the better. For example, to remember devastated, imagine someone getting rejected from their dream job and sitting in the rain on the sidewalk, heartbroken. You feel that word now, don't you? And here's a bonus. The more senses you involve, the stronger the memory. Don't just see a scene. Feel the temperature, hear the background noise, taste the emotions. Use every mental tool to bring the story to life. If you're learning the word terrified, imagine standing on the edge of a tall cliff. The wind is cold, your knees are shaking, one wrong step and it's over. That's not just a word anymore, it's an experience. Let's add some positive emotion too. For the word grateful, imagine someone giving you a gift when you least expected it. A handwritten letter, a warm meal, or even just a compliment. You felt surprised, moved, thankful. That moment becomes the anchor. Now, grateful isn't just a definition, it's a feeling. This works especially well when tied to your goals. For instance, if you're learning English to get a better job, imagine the moment you're in an interview and the employer says, "You're hired." Feel the relief, the pride, the happiness. Anchor that to words like opportunity, success, achievement. Emotional anchoring also boosts speaking fluency. Why? Because when you speak, you don't just pull up random words. You pull up memories, experiences, and reactions. The more emotionally tied your vocabulary is, the faster and more naturally it comes out. You're not translating, you're expressing. One more powerful trick. Create personal dictionaries with emotional meanings. Instead of writing down a definition, write down the moment or feeling that the word reminds you of. For example, word, awkward, meaning, that time I waved at someone who wasn't waving at me. Feeling, face turned red, laughed, nervously. Over time, you'll build a vocabulary list that's more like a memory map, a living, breathing record of feelings, not just facts. And remember, emotion doesn't always mean drama. It can be joy, curiosity, frustration, relief. Even humor is a powerful anchor. The funnier and more ridiculous the story, the more likely you are to remember the word. Want to remember clumsy? Picture a giraffe on roller skates spilling spaghetti all over the floor. Instant memory. So how do you actually use emotional anchoring in daily practice? Pick a new word. Ask yourself, have I ever felt this word? If yes, write a short sentence or story about it. If not, create a story or scene that's funny, sad, or intense. Repeat the word while replaying that story in your mind. The best part? You can combine this with the techniques we already covered. Add your emotional scene to a spaced repetition card. Place it in a memory palace room. The more layers you build, the stronger your memory becomes. To recap, emotional anchoring helps you remember words not by force, but by feeling. Words that matter to you stick. Words that connect to real experiences stay. This is more than language learning. It's personal, storytelling, daily practice routines that stick. At this point, you've learned some of the most powerful memory techniques in the world: spaced repetition, visualization, memory palaces, and emotional anchoring. But here's the big question. How do you turn all of this into a daily habit that actually fits into your life? Because let's be honest, learning something once isn't enough. You need a system, a rhythm, a routine that makes learning feel natural, not forced. That's what this section is all about. Let's start with a basic truth. Consistency beats intensity. You don't need to spend hours every day memorizing hundreds of words. In fact, that often leads to burnout. What works better is small, focused sessions repeated regularly. Even 10 to 15 minutes a day can lead to massive progress. If you're doing the right things. Here's a proven structure you can start using right away. I call it the 3-3-3 method. 3 minutes reviewing old words using spaced repetition, like Anki or Quizlet. 3 minutes learning 3 new words with visualization or memory palace techniques. 3 minutes reinforcing those new words using emotional anchoring, storytelling, or example sentences. That's just 9 minutes. Anyone can fit that into their day. While waiting for coffee, during a commute, on a lunch break. The point is, you make a vocabulary part of your life, not something separate from it. Next up, habit stacking. This is a concept from behavioral science that means adding a new habit onto something you already do. For example, after brushing your teeth, review 5 flashcards. After breakfast, open your memory palace and walk through 1 room. After finishing a YouTube video, write down 1 new word you heard and anchor it emotionally. By stacking learning onto existing habits, you reduce resistance. Your brain doesn't see it as extra work. It just becomes part of your flow. Another key strategy is to mix your input sources. Don't just rely on apps or textbooks. Use YouTube videos, podcasts, conversations, social media, books, anything where English appears in real life. Then pull vocabulary from those sources and apply your memory tools. Here's how to turn any video into a vocab lesson. Watch a short clip with subtitles. Write down 2-3 interesting words or phrases. Create a flashcard with an image, example, sentence, or emotional story. Add it to your review routine. This keeps your learning fresh and connected to the real world. It also builds a stronger sense of relevance, which, as we've learned, is key for memory. Let's also talk about environment design. If you want to build a daily habit, make your environment help you. Put sticky notes on your mirror. Set reminders on your phone. Keep your flashcard app on your home screen. Leave your English notebook open on your desk. Reduce the number of steps it takes to start learning. Think about this. Which person is more likely to exercise? Someone whose workout clothes are hidden in a drawer, or someone who lays them out the night before? Same goes for learning English. If your tools are visible and easy to access, you're much more likely to use them. Another tip: use the 1-minute rule. Tell yourself, I'll just review for 1 minute. That's it. No pressure. But once you start, you'll usually keep going. The hardest part of building a habit is just starting. So lower the barrier, and don't forget to track your progress. Not just with streaks or scores, but with actual reflection. Ask yourself, which words did I actually use in conversation this week? Which words do I still forget, and why? How do I feel about my progress? Self-awareness turns random learning into intentional growth. You can also supercharge your routine with weekly challenges. For example, learn 10 new words related to emotions. Create 1 story using 5 new expressions. Teach a friend or classmate 3 of your new words. Write a journal entry using your newly learned vocabulary. Gamifying the process keeps things interesting and adds a bit of pressure in a fun, productive way. Now let's talk about balance. Don't fall into the trap of only learning vocabulary. Yes, vocabulary is essential, but it's just one part of language fluency. Mix in listening, reading, speaking, and writing. That way, your vocabulary becomes active, not passive. Here's a sample weekly routine that keeps things balanced and realistic. Monday, Friday, 10-minute vocab sessions using 3-3-3 method. Saturday, watch a video or listen to a podcast. Pull 5 new words from it. Sunday, review your week. Reflect. Use your words in a short journal or voice note. Simple, doable, powerful. Last but not least, remember this: your motivation matters. The more emotionally connected you are to your reason for learning English, the easier it is to stay consistent. So write down your why. Is it for your career, travel, connection, confidence? Whatever it is, remind yourself regularly. Motivation fades, but habits carry you forward. To sum up, small daily actions matter more than big occasional efforts. Use routines that are realistic, flexible, and easy to follow. Stack new habits onto old ones. Make your environment work for you. Mix your sources and keep it fun. Track progress and celebrate wins, even small ones. You now have the tools and the plan. All that's left is to show up day after day and keep going. Because with the right routine, remembering, English words isn't just possible, it becomes automatic. You made it to the end, and by now, you've unlocked some of the most powerful memory techniques used by top learners and memory champions around the world. More importantly, you now understand that forgetting English words isn't a flaw in you, it's just how the brain works. But now you know how to work with your brain instead of against it. Let's quickly recap what you've learned. First, we explored the science of forgetting. You learned about the forgetting curve and why short-term memory isn't enough. Your brain needs emotional, relevant, and spaced-out reminders to retain new words. Then, we introduced spaced repetition, your new secret weapon. You saw how simple it is to use tools like Anki or Quizlet to review vocabulary at exactly the right intervals, building memory that lasts. Next, you stepped into the world of memory palaces and visualization. You discovered how to place vivid, often hilarious images in mental locations you already know, making abstract words unforgettable through stories and scenery. We followed that with emotional anchoring, the process of tying each word to a strong feeling, personal story, or emotionally rich moment. You now understand how emotion burns vocabulary into your long-term memory, and in the last section, we turned knowledge into action with daily practice routines. You've got the 3-3-3 method, habit stacking, and realistic, low-pressure ways to make vocabulary review something you do automatically. So here's the big takeaway. You don't need to study harder. You need to study smarter. And smarter means learning with emotion, story, visuals, spaced review, and consistency. Now, I know this might feel like a lot at first. You might be thinking, can I really do this? The answer is yes. You don't need to master everything today. Just pick one strategy from this video and try it out this week. Whether it's creating your first flashcards with emotional anchors or building a mini memory palace for 5 new words, take action now while it's fresh in your mind. Thirsty eye. Hardest part of learning is usually just getting started. But now you have momentum. You're not starting from scratch. You're starting smart. And every single word you remember from today forward is proof that this method works. English fluency isn't about knowing every word. It's about remembering the right words when you need them. And now you have the tools to make that happen. So if you found this video helpful, do me a favor. Hit the like button, share it with a friend who's learning English, and subscribe to the channel for more science-based strategies that actually work. And let me know in the comments, which technique are you going to try first? I'd love to hear your plan and cheer you on. Thanks for watching. Keep learning, keep practicing, and never forget, you've got this.